Do you accept that?
No, I'll tell you why that is not true,
You don't think
Andrew.
that's true?
No, I do not think that's
You
true
don't
at all.
think that a Labour government is considered something worth thinking about
No,
as
I'll
the
tell you what-
possible threat by a Labour? You're mad if you think that, if you don't think that. Of course it is. What have the Tories done wrong this time?
Well, what we've got, your listeners will know as well as I do that we're facing a cost of living crisis right now, the likes of which most people have never seen. We've got energy prices escalating and energy bills going up. We've got inflation now at a 40-year high. We've got personal taxes after the last budget now at a 70-year high. Families just can't make ends meet. So the Conservatives are wrong to have simply allowed council tax to go up, bills landing this week as it happens, by over 5% on average up and down the country, when they could have taken a decision to freeze council tax bills by levying a genuine windfall tax on the oil and gas giants and use the proceeds of that to freeze council tax bills. We had the budget from the Chancellor. He chose to put people's income taxes up by freezing the thresholds. That's a form of stealth tax. Apart from the top 1%, who he gave away £1 billion bung that has left them better off.
You said no, but you've actually said that you would in Labour reverse the lifting of the lifetime allowance. But they're thereby completely shattering anybody's chance of planning, and the motivation behind losing the lifetime allowance cap. The motivation behind it was a good one, wasn't it?
Well,
Would you know what the motivation
if they wanted
was?
to help, if their intention was to keep GPs and doctors working in the health service, they should have done something targeted on GPs and doctors in the health service. Just as a few years ago, a similar scheme was done for judges. What they didn't need to do was for everybody who is in the wealthiest 1% and give them £1 billion bung, while the other 99%, Andrew, are left paying more tax at the time they simply can't afford it.
Well, most of the people that you're talking about are in public service. They are actually, those people with those lifetime allowances were senior medics in the NHS and civil servants.
It's everybody who's got a massive pension worth over £1 million. No, it's everybody. They've applied it to everybody. I mean, I think we're probably arguing for the same point, which is it should be targeted at doctors, just as it was at judges a few years ago, but not to everyone else who's in the top 1%, not while the other 99%, which, literally the rest of the country, is being made to pay more.
So Labour will reverse
taxes and now council tax.
Labour would reverse the lifting of the lifetime allowance, right?
Yes,
so that you've said
absolutely.
That. Well, let's see what else you said on tax. Labour, you haven't ruled out a capital gains tax rise. Is that right? That hasn't been ruled out.
No, that's not something that Labour's looking at the moment. I mean, what we're talking about, the way that we have. We're not looking at that at all. The way that Labour would fund a council tax freeze is by a proper levy on the oil and gas giants.
You've said that. I'm talking about other tax policies as well. Mr. Corbyn's policy of axing the financial benefits that private schools get from their charitable status, that would be something that you would pursue, wouldn't it?
Yeah, what Labour's looking at changing in tax policies is, yes, there is a VAT tax loophole for private schools. That would be removed so that we can fund improvements in teaching in the rest of the education system. We would scrap non-dom status. This is where very wealthy foreigners living in our country don't have to pay tax.
Right.
They get it would raise £3 billion that you could use to fund the biggest increase in doctors and nurses in our NHS history.
They do pay tax when they bring the money back.
No, on the vast amount of their income, they're not paying tax. They have the benefits of living in our country, but they're not paying income tax.
Yeah, but when they bring the money back from another country to this country, they pay tax on it when they bring it back here.
No, the vast amounts of most of their income, they don't pay. Even though they're living in this country, like everybody else, even though they're benefiting from being here in Britain, they are paying lower rates of tax than a hairdresser in my constituency. And yet they're earning billions. It's not fair.
No. I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I know where the resentments are. What you don't want, though, Steve, and do you agree with me on this one, is that the rich, let's say the top 1%, those earning more than £160,000 a year, by the way, is the top 1%. What you don't want, because they're paying, for instance, 30% of the total income tax paid, the top 1% paying 30% of income, you don't want them going somewhere else with all their lovely money that we want at this point. So how do you motivate those who are well off to actually stay here?
We're not talking about people earning more than £160,000 a year. Non-doms.
No, I'm not talking about non-doms now. The top 1% is what I'm talking about. We talk about the 1% the whole time, and I understand that, you want to, take them for whatever you can, pay a fair rate of tax. What I just said to you is that the top 1% pay 30% of income tax. You don't want them to be paying it somewhere else, and they're quite quite frictionless. The wealthy, aren't they?
But
you don't want their money somewhere else. Not talking about non-doms.
That top 1% you're talking about already live here, don't they? They're already living here and paying taxes. The government just gave them a giveaway. They haven't arrived because of the giveaway. They already were here paying taxes at that rate. The government had just taken £1 billion and handed it to them. There's no issue about them going and living somewhere else.
But during
they've given them extra money. They didn't ask for it.
All I'm saying is that you don't want to be driving the wealthy away because they pay an awful lot.
No, it's not driving them away, is it? Because they're already here. This isn't an extra tax. It's a tax giveaway.
But just generally speaking, a Labour government is considered a threat by the well-off, right? Do you accept that?
No, I'll tell you why that is not true,
You don't think that's true?
No, I do not think that's
true
at all.
You don't think that a Labour government is considered something worth thinking about
no,
as
I'll
the
tell you
possible
what, I'll tell you
threat
what,
by as a Labour? You're mad if you think that, if you don't think that. Of course it is.
I completely disagree with you, and the reason is because people who are doing that well need an economy that is growing. And what we've not seen from the Conservatives these last 13 years is a growing economy. We've currently got the lowest growth in the G7, which is the 7 biggest economies in the world. And if you look at the 13 years now we've had the Conservatives in power, and the 13 years that Labour was in power, on average, Labour grew the economy 50% more every single year than the Conservatives. Now, that benefits the top 1%, just like it benefits the 99% as well.
I agree. I agree with you completely, and it's why so many Tories are now going, are you... At the highest tax burden in, I don't know, two millennia, it seems utterly ridiculous that this is a Conservative government. And all I'm saying is that Labour, I wonder if they've got something waiting for us that might scare the horses, particularly in the southeast, that might worry Middle England, who've got a decent income and would consider the Labour Party a threat. I'm talking about that stupid mansion tax that Miliband had. I'm talking, things like that. The possibility of a wealth tax.
Nothing of the sort.
Things like, no, well, I know nothing's been announced, but that is a concern.
No, and I'll tell you what, those last two things we were talking about, Andrew, are linked. The reason that we have a high tax economy is because we have a low growth economy. The way to keep the tax burden low is to grow the economy faster. Now, Labour's got this Green Prosperity Plan. Labour's got this Green Prosperity Plan, and the chairman of Tesco's, not a Labour guy, he's one of the captains of British industry. He said there's only one player on the pitch when it comes to economic growth, and that is the Labour Party. And he was looking at our plans, for instance.
Who's that?
The chairman of Tesco. He was looking at, for instance, our plans to invest in wind, wave, solar, nuclear. That means really good, well-paid, secure jobs up and down the country. But it also gives us control of our own energy supply in the end, which means we're no longer reliant on these volatile and increasingly expensive flows of fossil fuels from outside our own country. Why would you not invest in that if it brings you economic growth and it lowers energy bills at the same time?
Fracking in Croydon North is what I say, Steve. Fracking.
Well, I don't think the people of Croydon North would be too happy to hear you say that, Andrew.